The childhood sweethearts, Shi Fan Tuan and Chen Muguang, grew up together. They were close throughout their youth. They were so close that he often called her by the affectionate name Rice Ball. Their houses were only separated by a wall. Therefore, there seemed to be no secrets between the two. Playing with this duo was a boy named Xuan Zihe. The three of them grew up together in a small district. Every day they went to school through a familiar path. The story began in the schoolyard with the image of Guo Bu Li, a kind friend who often helped his friends line up their bikes before class. But the highlight of that day, the opening day of 11th grade, was the appearance of a new boy named Bai Hai Chuan. Fan Tuan was immediately stunned by this boy. The girl named Wei Kexin seemed to have been familiar with the male god Hai Chuan before. When Fan Tuan saw her name on the class map sitting right next to Hai Chuan, she couldn't help but laugh. Ironically, Muguang, even though he was assigned to sit at the last table, still deliberately went up. He tried to tease her. It turned out that Fan Tuan had met Hai Chuan before. Once, when her phone was snatched, he bravely helped her get it back. When they met again, Hai Chuan still remembered the old story. But because the current Fan Tuan looked so different from before, he almost didn't recognize her. As soon as Fan Tuan sat next to her crush, she immediately acted like a lady. She turned to remind Muguang to stop playing with her hair. However, he was her nemesis. He deliberately teased her constantly, causing her to quickly reveal her true nature. Immediately after, the homeroom teacher entered the classroom and introduced a new classmate. He proudly boasted that Hai Chuan had won first prize in the math Olympiad and was also a national debate champion. Even though the new classmate was so excellent, in Zihe's eyes, he still thought his big brother Muguang was better. After the introduction, the homeroom teacher didn't forget to remind him to fix the classroom order, especially pastimes like snacking, reading novels, and falling asleep in class. At lunchtime, Fan Tuan was munching on a chicken leg when she suddenly saw Hai Chuan coming over. She quickly changed and started pretending to eat slowly and leisurely. This action surprised Muguang, who was sitting across from her. He realized that every time she met Hai Chuan, she would become a completely different person. At this moment, Zihe brought over soft drinks. Fan Tuan hated eating onions, so she quickly took all the onions in her bowl and gave them to Muguang. Seeing her eat so hastily that she choked, he teased her. He asked her how many months she was pregnant. After school, Muguang continued her habit of secretly stealing things from his father's grocery store. Ironically, Mr. Chen, Muguang's father, seemed to always strictly forbid him. But on the contrary, Mr. Chen was extremely indulgent with Fan Tuan. This preferential treatment made Muguang very angry. Muguang wondered who was his real son. After leaving the grocery store, the group went to Uncle He-yun's familiar snack shop. Here, Muguang and Fan Tuan were given priority to try the new dishes. While eating, Fan Tuan kept looking at Muguang's face, and then she criticized him for being ugly. Muguang felt hurt. He immediately corrected himself, saying that the number of people chasing him could line up from bridge number 3 to bridge number 4. The group was happily teasing each other when Fan Tuan suddenly stopped. She had just seen her mother on the other side of the street. Her face was panicked. She quickly signaled to her father. Her father was playing mahjong. He quickly packed up his things and quickly ran into the house. The scene was perfectly staged. Just then, he entered the house and saw a warm scene. Her husband was diligently cleaning. Her daughter was diligently studying. Everything seemed to be fine. However, when Mrs. He entered the messy kitchen, she immediately became angry. In her anger, accidentally knocked over the mahjong tiles that Mr. Shi had tried so hard to hide. As a result, Fan Tuan had to wear headphones that night. She turned up the music really loud to overcome her mother's anger towards her father. When Fan Tuan went downstairs to throw out the trash, she coincidentally met Muguang. He was standing quietly watching Mr. Chen chatting intimately with another woman. Seeing that Muguang seemed unhappy, Fan Tuan immediately analyzed the situation. Fan Tuan commented that Miss Wang seemed to have a big mouth, so she must be a person who likes to eat. Meanwhile, Muguang's father was a terrible cook, so he definitely wouldn't be able to keep her. Muguang could only think to himself that her unique way of comforting him sometimes made his heart stop. When they got home, Mr. Chen invited Muguang to eat an apple, but he coldly refused. Muguang suddenly asked his father when you plan to get married and have children with Miss Wang. Muguang also added that he did not want Mr. Chen's new child to have the same surname as him. In history class the next day, Fan Tuan secretly sat down to draw a portrait of Hai Chuan. Unfortunately, she was caught by the teacher, but ironically, the teacher mistook the student for the drawing of himself. The teacher also said that he heard that Fan Tuan had secretly gone to the Hefei magazine office during the summer vacation. The teacher asked her if she was planning to become famous, so she stopped listening to the lecture. Fan Tuan was extremely embarrassed when her truth was exposed. She immediately thought that Muguang had told the teacher teacher to write, because this was supposed to be a secret between the two of them. As it turned out, Mu Guang remembered that it was because he knew that Fan Tuan had spent the entire summer vacation diligently writing a novel. He had promised to help her send the manuscript. Fan Tuan was so touched that she also solemnly promised that if she became rich, she would definitely take care of her best friend's marriage. And then, the opportunity came. The Xinhua editorial office in Hefei suddenly sent a letter to Fan Tuan to invite him for an interview. However, her mother immediately stopped her. She was afraid that she would be scammed. Fortunately, her father was very supportive. He decided to take all the secret funds hidden in the Buddhist scriptures and secretly gave them to her as travel expenses. However, her mother's worries came true. The next morning, when Fan Tuan had just set foot in Hefei, she immediately fell into a trap. A group of people used the name of the Xinhua editorial office to lure naive students into attending a literature training class. Fan Tuan was still naive and gullible, so she paid all the valuable travel expenses to the scammers. It was only when she went to the training center as directed that she found it was a cosmetics store. Only then did she start to panic. When she went outside, she met another boy who was in the same situation. Only then did Fan Tuan accept the fact that she had been cheated out of money. At that moment, Mu Guang called. Fan Tuan could no longer hold back and suddenly burst into tears. However, when Mu Guang rushed over, he saw Hai Chuan helping Fan Tuan. She was very embarrassed. She could only tell Mu Guang that he absolutely must not reveal her embarrassing story to anyone. To comfort her, even though he didn't have much money left in his pocket, he still tried to take her to the old house area. When they passed by an antique shop, Fan Tuan suddenly had the idea of trying on wedding dresses. While taking pictures, Fan Tuan seemed quite nervous, so Mu Guang had to constantly tease her to help her relax. The shop owner informed her that they only printed small-sized photos for free. If she wanted a large-sized photo, she would have to pay a high price. Hearing this, Fan Tuan immediately felt sorry for the money, so she decided not to print the large photos. However, Mu Guang had other plans. He pretended to have a stomachache and told her to go out first. Then he secretly came back to buy a large photo of her. When Mu Guang came back, Fan Tuan immediately gave him the bad news that they had missed the last bus home. The two decided to find a motel to stay at, but first, they had to agree on a statement to deceive their parents. But when Fan Tuan looked at the price list, she discovered that the remaining money was only enough to rent a room. Mu Guang trusted Fan Tuan, immediately handed over all the responsibility of checking into her. She had to muster up all her courage to go and rent a room. Then she hurriedly took the card and ran away. However, when the door opened, the somewhat ambiguous scene inside made both of them stand still and speechless. To be polite, Mu Guang took the initiative to give Fan Tuan the bed. He slept on the sofa. Fan Tuan innocently said that the bed was big enough for both of them, but Mu Guang quickly brushed it off and made an excuse that he wanted to try the feeling of lying on the cramped sofa. That night, in his dream, the image of Fan Tuan's bride's face in the photo studio suddenly appeared. It made Mu Guang's heart flutter, but while he was dreaming, a slap from her suddenly woke him up. It turned out that Fan Tuan was just swatting mosquitoes. Seeing that she was bitten by a mosquito, he immediately took out the medicine bottle from his bag to apply on her itchy wound. But as soon as he realized that he was touching a girl's shoulder, he was startled. He hurriedly returned to his sofa. Perhaps because of the unfamiliar place, Fan Tuan couldn't sleep, so she decided to chat with Mu Guang. She wondered why he was good at the natural sciences, but ended up choosing the social sciences class. Mu Guang just gave a simple reason that the social sciences class was simpler. He asked her what she wanted to do in the future. She innocently replied that she would probably be a janitor. As for Mu Guang, she would be a security guard. They talked for a while. When he saw that she had gradually fallen asleep, he dared to secretly take the large photo he had bought earlier out of his bag. He looked at the two faces in the photo and suddenly realized that Fan Tuan seemed to have really grown up. Back at school, Fan Tuan discovered that somehow the other classmates all knew about her being tricked at Hefei. Fan Tuan thought that only Mu Guang knew, so she became even angrier at him. Seeing Fan Tuan sitting alone dejectedly, Hai Chuan took the initiative to comfort her. He gently said that she was very brave because she dared to challenge herself by going to Hefei alone. That scene caught Mu Guang's eye when he was in the schoolyard. Mu Guang saw Fan Tuan sitting and confiding in Hai Chuan, so he hurried over. He deliberately squeezed in and sat between the two. Hearing Fan Tuan's anger, Mu Guang teased her that he guessed that she must be feeling unwell. He even deliberately asked her to help him write an essay for class. When Fan Tuan angrily refused, Mu Guang immediately used his last trick. He deliberately spoke loudly and reminded the two of their agreement to eat together and sleep in the same bed at night. Fearing that last night's secret would be revealed right in front of Hai Chuan, Fan Tuan had no choice but to angrily agree to let Mu Guang Guang keep it a secret. After Mu Guang came back from playing basketball, Fan Tuan ran out to report that she had written and submitted his essay for him. Mu Guang still did not know that disaster was about to strike. He was still grateful and thanked her profusely. He also generously invited her to his house for dinner. The real drama began during the homework return period. Miss Sun, the literature teacher, was extremely pleased with the essay submitted under Mu Guang's name. She solemnly invited him to the podium to read it for the whole class to enjoy. Mu Guang proudly raised his voice loudly, without any suspicion, but the content he read was not at all from a boy. It was the deep thoughts of a late puberty. The essay described in detail the feeling of a dull pain in the chest, a mood that was both excited and a little shy, along with a secret shyness, wanting to ask someone but not daring. Amidst the surprise and giggles of the whole class when hearing those words, only teacher Sun was still unaware. She continued to praise and said that Mu Guang's level of metaphor and psychological description was indeed excellent. She even felt ashamed for not being as good as her students. As soon as class ended, Mu Guang immediately looked for Fan Tuan and asked why she made a fool of him, but she ignored him and was even upset and did not want to go home with him. Being ignored by his best friend, he had no choice but to go to the billiard shop to relieve his stress. He complained that Fan Tuan was angry for no reason. She only talked to Bai Haichuan all day. Mu Guang also wondered which bastard had revealed that Fan Tuan was cheated at Heifei. At that moment, a few thugs came to cause trouble at the table next to him. Seeing that the other guy was about to start a fight, Mu Guang bravely stood up to stop him. Although Fan Tuan was sure that he would be beaten, he still did it. Unexpectedly, when they saw Mu Guang, the thugs immediately retreated. He thought that the other side was afraid of him, not knowing that there was always a pair of eyes secretly watching him. At this time, Fan Tuan was also uneasy. After asking her father for a secret fund and coaxing her mother to advance her pocket money, she secretly went to see a doctor. That night, when she returned to her room, she overheard her mother talking to her father. The mother said that business was not going well, so they both had to try to save money to pay for their daughter's university education. What Fan Tuan's parents said made her even more worried. At that moment, a flashlight shone in from outside the window. It was Mu Guang. He went over to borrow a notebook to do his homework. The next day, Fan Tuan went to the hospital for a checkup. The news was not very good. The doctor advised her to come back for a checkup soon, because this autoimmune hepatitis can easily turn malignant. Fan Tuan returned to class with a heavy heart. She met Mu Guang, who was waiting for her. He asked her why she had to skip the first period. In the midst of her confusion, she only asked him to go back to his seat so that she could concentrate on studying. At that moment, Haichuan gave Fan Tuan his notebook. Seeing the two of them being so close, Mu Guang suddenly felt a little sad. During the period, Mu Guang kept writing letters and blaming Fan Tuan for having a prince by her side and forgetting about him. Seeing that she ignored him, he continued to write letters begging her to pay attention to him. As soon as the period ended, Mu Guang immediately ran to ask Fan Tuan to go out to eat. Fan Tuan was not in the mood to go out to eat, but Mu Guang still refused to give up. Being blamed for being unreasonable made him very sad and angry. He declared that he was the one who understood her the most in the world. He started to tell a lot of things like she didn't eat herbs, really liked durian, was disoriented, and even spent half an hour in the bathroom. After listening, Fan Tuan just coldly replied that if someone else had been with her for so long, they would know all of those things. When school ended, Fan Tuan panicked when she couldn't find her medical report. She didn't know that another classmate had picked it up. Furthermore, this was the first time Fan Tuan had to go home late at night without Mu Guang. Seeing someone following her, she was scared. She intended to pull a girl ahead to go with her. Unexpectedly, the man behind her was just going to pick up his daughter. Just when she was most scared and embarrassed, Haichuan appeared. Even though they went the opposite way home, he was still thoughtful and volunteered to take her home. To thank him, she bought him a late dinner. But ironically, across the street, Mu Guang, who was also looking for Fan Tuan, happened to see her, happily eating with another guy. He immediately approached and asked to join the two. Seeing Fan Tuan give the last skewer to Haichuan, Mu Guang wanted to take it back. When Haichuan thanked Fan Tuan for the supper and suggested that he would treat her again next time, Mu Guang also hurriedly asked to join. But when he saw Fan Tuan's eyes filled with affection for Haichuan, Mu Guang suddenly felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. The next day in class, Fan Tuan immediately noticed the strange looks from his classmates. During literature class, a girl named Lin Shu suddenly raised her hand to ask the teacher if hepatitis was contagious. although Miss Sun refused to answer because it was not within the scope of the lesson, but the atmosphere of suspicion had already begun to spread. At lunchtime, the classmates all avoided sitting near Fan Tuan. Mu Guang did not understand what was going on, so he quickly turned to ask Zihei. At this time, Zihei told her that the whole class was gossiping about Fan Tuan's hepatitis. Hearing this, Mu Guang immediately dismissed it and thought that he was the closest person to her, so he couldn't help but know that she was sick. Knowing that Fan Tuan hadn't eaten yet, Mu Guang thoughtfully brought her lunch back to class. However, when she had to face the other classmates' suspicious looks, Fan Tuan was no longer in the mood to eat. Right after that, when she returned to class, Chuan took the initiative to give her a sandwich. The scene of Fan Tuan refusing the food he bought, but she happily ate Hai Chuan's sandwich made Mu Guang jealous. It turned out that the source of all the rumors was that Wei Kei-shin had picked up Fan Tuan's test results. She was pretending to be kind and wanted to stand up with Hai Chuan to defend Fan Tuan. Things went further. While in the schoolyard, Mu Guang accidentally heard two other classmates gossiping about Fan Tuan. Not only did they criticize her for having hepatitis, they also spread malicious rumors that the disease was sexually transmitted. Then they sarcastically said that no one would want to be close to her. Hearing those words, Mu Guang immediately became angry. He rushed in to punish the two busybodies. Immediately, Teacher Wang called Mu Guang into the office and scolded him for causing trouble. He even dared to beat up a good student in the natural sciences, but Mu Guang didn't care who that person was. He firmly stated that as long as he heard anyone bad-mouthing Fan Tuan, he would definitely not forgive that person. Coincidentally, Fan Tuan was standing right outside the door at that time, and she heard the whole brave statement of Mu Guang. When Teacher Wang met Fan Tuan, he intended to ask her clearly about her illness, but before the teacher could speak, Mu Guang immediately interrupted. He affirmed that he had grown up with Fan Tuan since childhood, so he was sure that she was not. With Mu Guang's protection, Fan Tuan had to admit that the rumors were only half true. She said that she really had hepatitis, but it was a non-contagious strain. Soon after, Mu Guang pulled Fan Tuan up to the rooftop. He worriedly asked if her illness was terminal. She tried to tease him that he must have watched too many idol dramas and was seeing terminal illnesses everywhere, but then, she couldn't hide it anymore. She had to confess that this illness could really kill her. For the first time, she shared her fears. She used to think that the time from child to adult was very long, but now she discovered that it wasn't really like that. She was afraid that one day when she closed her eyes, she wouldn't be able to eat her favorite food anymore. She wouldn't have the chance to read all the magazines. She explained that the reason she hid it from everyone was because her mother had just lost her job. Her mother was very worried. She didn't want others to worry and didn't like them to discriminate against her. After listening, Mu Guang just looked straight at Fan Tuan, and he affirmed that he was not someone else. He believed that she had been healthy since childhood. She would not be easily defeated by illness. He promised to find a way to earn money with her to go for a checkup. To fulfill this promise, Mu Guang started looking for a job. Mu Guang went to the billiard shop and was introduced by Zihei to work part-time for the manager named Ahui. Seeing that Mu Guang was good-looking, Ahui immediately agreed to hire him. After the introduction, Zihei asked for permission to go home early to attend his mother's birthday. At this time, Ahui introduced that Boss Ju was the real boss of the billiard shop. When they passed each other, Boss Ju was surprised to recognize Mu Guang as the brave young man who stood up to stop the thugs the day before. It turned out that the person who had secretly looked at Mu Guang at the billiard shop that day was Boss Ju. He expressed that he really liked Mu Guang's sense of duty, so he wanted to recruit Mu Guang to his team. Hearing this offer, Mu Guang immediately refused. Boss Ju did not force him. He only shared his ideals. He did not want to be just a thug. He wanted to turn this small Huayuan county into a densely populated and developed place. However, Mu Guang only politely thanked Boss Ju for his kindness. Mu Guang tactfully refused again and said that he did not want to go to jail yet. On the way home, Mu Guang happened to meet two fathers drinking to drown their sorrows. In his drunken state, Mr. Chen thanked Fan Tuan's father. Because Fan Tuan's father gave Mr. Chen a son, Mr. Chen confided that Mu Guang was his only purpose in life. These words were just the thoughts of two drunk men, but they unintentionally made Mu Guang extremely confused and worried. In the dark night, he had nightmares. He began to fear the prospect of being Fan Tuan's real brother. The storm outside seemed to be exactly the same as the sadness that was surging in his heart. At this moment, Muguang was shocked to realize that the brother-sister relationship he had always called Fan Tuan was now the thing he did not want to face the most. Early the next morning, Muguang went to pick Fan Tuan up from school in a dejected manner. It was still the same familiar path, the same breakfast as usual, but he himself was different. He no longer dared to naturally eat the same dishes that she had tasted. This unusual distance made her worried. When she got to class, she asked him what happened. Seeing his red ears, she was worried. She was afraid that he was sick, but when she approached, he quickly avoided her. During math class, Fan Tuan tried to send a letter to make fun of Muguang, but he only coldly reminded her to focus on studying. Seeing that the student was not listening, the homeroom teacher immediately called Fan Tuan to solve math problems. Even though Hai Chuan tried to remind Fan Tuan, he could not save her. The estrangement continued at lunchtime. Muguang deliberately bumped into Fan Tuan, but he ignored her. Due to rumors, the other students also avoided her, not daring to eat at the same table with someone they thought was infected. Amidst the isolation, only Hai Chuan always welcomed Fan Tuan. He gently told her not to pay attention to people who were not worthy. He affirmed that she always had a friend, which was him. Muguang witnessed the scene from the next table and was so angry that he could not swallow his food. During literature class, the teacher invited Muguang to the board to share his feelings about the book he had just read. As if on purpose, he started sharing about a book called Lei Yu, a story about a series of tragedies. He emphasized the ironic details. Two people got married without love. The mother fell in love with her husband's stepson. The son was even more miserable when he gave his heart to his half-sister. That night, Muguang sat studying until late at night and couldn't concentrate. He kept thinking about Fan Tuan's image. On the other side of the wall, she was also thinking about his sudden rejection. She began to wonder if he was like the others. He was afraid of catching the disease from her. The next day, the homeroom teacher met with Fan Tuan privately and said that he didn't want her writing talent to be lost. So he specially recommended her to be the student representative to participate in giving a speech. But this recognition couldn't dispel her loneliness. Right in the schoolyard, when Fan Tuan heard her classmates still gossiping behind her back, she suddenly felt nauseous. She threw up, but no one around her came to help. It was at this moment that Fan Tuan felt the ultimate rejection. At the speech, Fan Tuan spoke on behalf of the entire school about her experiences. But as soon as her name was called, the students below all began to gossip. That discrimination made Fan Tuan feel extremely self-conscious. She could only lower her head and stammer as she read the prepared speech. However, the little girl suddenly stopped and crumpled the speech in her hand. She decided to express her true feelings. She bravely admitted that she did have hepatitis, but she also immediately affirmed that the doctor had clearly said that this was autoimmune hepatitis and that it was not contagious. Fan Tuan shared that this disease had made her realize many things. She realized that the path to school every day was beautiful. She realized that the white rice in the school cafeteria was also very fragrant, because now she was afraid that one day she would no longer be able to eat it. She hinted about a certain person, that there were some people who were like white rice. They appeared so often in her life that she forgot that they were truly precious. She promised herself that if the two of them had an argument, she would definitely put aside her pride and take the initiative to make peace, because to her, that person was extremely important. In the end, Fan Tuan thanked this difficult time, because it made her deeply understand the meaning of time. When Fan Tuan timidly walked down after her speech, a familiar voice suddenly rang out in the eyes of the whole school. It was Muguang. Ignoring everyone, he walked straight towards Fan Tuan and pulled her into a tight hug. He secretly blamed himself for hesitating. It was just like those rumors that hurt her. He firmly assured her that no matter what happened, he would always stand by her side. Seeing this, his classmates also ran over. They cheered Fan Tuan up together. The whole school wished her a speedy recovery from her illness. As soon as school was over, Muguang immediately apologized for his cold treatment these past few days and for pushing Fan Tuan into the cold palace. To make up for his mistake, he promised to treat her to a meaty feast. Their relationship quickly returned to normal. During the study group, Fan Tuan discovered Muguang secretly eating her candy. She teased him that he would definitely get a cavity sooner or later. Muguang then bet that if he got a cavity, he would pay Fan Tuan a fine of 500 yuan. In return, if he won, she would have to agree to one of his conditions. At that moment, Fan Tuan's mother, Mrs. He, walked in. She happily told Muguang to stay for dinner. Fan Tuan's father, Mr. Shi, also excitedly planned to cook Muguang's favorite fish dish. Seeing this warm treatment, Muguang couldn't help but wonder why the two were so nice to him. Mr. Shi heard this and immediately affirmed that to the two, Muguang was the same as Fan Tuan. They were both children in this family. family. So moved by this affection, Mu Guang unexpectedly called them both mom and dad. The next day, Fan Tuan was dragged to class by Mu Guang early in the morning. She yawned and made him responsible if she fell asleep during class. In class, Fan Tuan went to get water for Hai Chuan. Seeing that scene, Mu Guang also wished that Fan Tuan would take care of him like that. Fan Tuan also noticed that Mu Guang often got angry for no reason recently, especially when he saw her being nice to Hai Chuan. She also remembered that she had seen Mu Guang secretly get water for Hai Chuan. When Fan Tuan asked about her strange attitude, Mu Guang could not explain. He quickly distracted her. When entering the classroom, teacher Wang announced the school's upcoming art festival. Fan Tuan immediately enthusiastically volunteered to sign up for a performance. She explained that the festival only happened once every 3 years in high school, so she really wanted to leave a good memory. Inspired by Fan Tuan, the classmates were all excited to sign up. At the same time, in front of the teacher's office, Hai Chuan was gathering all her courage to go see teacher Wang. It turned out that he also wanted to sign up for a show, specifically a duet with Fan Tuan. After signing up, he returned to class and immediately presented his choreography idea to Fan Tuan. Hai Chuan explained that he wanted to imitate a famous musical about two boys fighting to win the heart of a girl. He offered to invite Fan Tuan to play the female lead. Hai Chuan believed that Fan Tuan would learn very well and quickly memorize the choreography. Fan Tuan was very excited when she heard that, but she was also worried. She suddenly remembered that Mu Guang had learned to dance since she was young, so she ran to ask him to help her. Mu Guang, of course, did not miss the opportunity to tease her. He criticized that Fan Tuan's legs and arms were not in harmony, making it difficult to express his artistic spirit. However, in the end, he said that because of the bottle of water she gave him, he reluctantly accepted. However, Mu Guang did not intend to tutor Fan Tuan. He went to see teacher Wang and asked to sign up to dance with Fan Tuan. At this time, teacher Wang informed him that Fan Tuan had already signed up to dance with Hai Chuan. This conversation was accidentally overheard by Hai Chuan when he was downstairs. Without any discomfort, Hai Chuan took the initiative to invite Mu Guang to join his dance. At first, Mu Guang said bluntly that he had no interest in Hai Chuan's play, but in the end, he reluctantly agreed. He admitted that he was doing it for Fan Tuan. First practice session took place on the rooftop. Hai Chuan started to guide Fan Tuan to practice dancing, but when Mu Guang saw him holding Fan Tuan's hand, he immediately couldn't stand it and quickly pushed Hai Chuan away. He suggested that he would dance with Hai Chuan first so that Fan Tuan could watch and learn the moves. Witnessing the scene of the two tall boys awkwardly dancing together, Fan Tuan couldn't help but laugh. Perhaps because he could not bear to see Fan Tuan dancing with another boy, Mu Guang finally sadly left practice and left. When Hai Chuan returned to class, he suddenly called Mu Guang's secret name and went straight to the point. He wondered why someone who could solve math problems at the graduate level like Mu Guang would deliberately choose to study social sciences subjects. Hai Chuan asked if Mu Guang's feelings for Fan Tuan had gone beyond the simple childhood sweetheart. Faced with this unexpected question, Mu Guang quickly affirmed that he was just like an older brother protecting his younger sister to Fan Tuan. However, Hai Chuan did not believe that excuse. He bluntly declared that he would not give Fan Tuan to anyone. After school, Fan Tuan asked Hai Chuan to stay and practice dancing, but at that moment, Keishin appeared and reminded him that Hai Chuan's family had promised to come to her house for dinner. Only then did Hai Chuan suddenly remember what his parents had told him. He had no choice but to apologize to Fan Tuan and hurriedly leave. Fan Tuan had no choice but to go home and practice alone. At that moment, Mu Guang happened to pass by. Seeing that she was having a hard time, he did not forget to tease her. He compared her to a stupid bird that could not take off. Despite his criticism, he still decided to replace Hai Chuan to practice dancing with her. And then, to the romantic love song, Mu Guang picked up Fan Tuan. She also gently placed her hand on his shoulder and looked straight into his eyes. When Mu Guang caught Fan Tuan's spin, her sparkling eyes seemed to light up his life. At that moment, he wanted to get closer to her, but his reason told him to stop because he was afraid that both of them would get hurt. The next day, Mu Guang decided to use all his savings to buy a pair of dancing shoes for Fan Tuan, but he did not dare to give them to her right away. He could only secretly look at her through the window. When Mu Guang saw Fan Tuan sprain her ankle during practice, he quickly brought out some oil to massage her. She sighed, complaining that she still couldn't keep up with Hai Chuan's dancing. Mu Guang just gently comforted her and advised her to only compare herself with herself from yesterday. As long as she improved, she wouldn't have any regrets. That evening, Mu Guang decided to muster up the courage to give Fan Tuan a gift, but ironically, at that moment, she had just received another pair of shoes from Hai Chuan. Seeing how Fan Tuan loved Hai Chuan's gift, Mu Guang could only keep silent. silent. He carefully hid the pair of shoes that he had bought with all his savings. The art festival finally arrived. Fan Tuan was radiant in her evening gown and wearing Haichuan's shoes. However, when the show was about to start, he still hadn't arrived. It turned out that Haichuan was stuck at a pre-arranged dinner between his family and Keishin's family. Here, his father began to ask why he did not go to the extra class. Haichuan's father revealed that he had called the homeroom teacher that evening, and only then did he know that Haichuan was busy practicing dance. He was angry that his son was wasting precious time. Haichuan was also hanging out with kids who had no future. After being suppressed for so long, Haichuan finally exploded. He bitterly argued that at least those friends were carefully raised by their families and lived as real people, not a perfect machine like him. In his anger, he began to talk about his suffocation. From a young age, he had always had to read the books his father specified. He had to eat the food his father thought was the best. All personal interests were stifled. At the peak, he recalled that at the age of 10, he only dared to like playing Rubik's Cube. His father also thought that it would discourage his son, so he cruelly forced him to smash his favorite toy with his own hands. Haichuan concluded that perhaps in his father's eyes, he was a perfect son, but in his father's eyes, he was just a soulless tool. That's why he desperately confessed that he really didn't want to go home after school. He explained that only when he was with his friends did he feel free and happy for the first time. He painfully admitted that he hated his father for robbing him of his entire childhood. After the argument, Haichuan went to his room to get his school bag, but he was immediately locked up by his father. He could only beg Keishin to let him go. He explained that this festival was really important to him. Seeing this, Keishin hurriedly ran to the festival to inform everyone that Haichuan was locked up at home. Hearing this news, Muguang was immediately excited. He invited his teammates to rescue Haichuan. However, the modern electronic lock of Haichuan's house was not something that could be easily broken. With no other choice, Muguang stood under the window and shouted. The whole group cheered together to help Haichuan have the courage to escape from home. But in the meantime, at the festival, Fan Tuan had to go on stage alone. Luckily, Haichuan finally arrived in time, but it was not until Muguang appeared that Fan Tuan truly felt relieved. She confidently stepped into the dance with Haichuan. Their harmonious and affectionate coordination made the audience below scream non-stop. And then, the drama was pushed to a high level when it was Muguang's turn. In the role of a man who could not find love, he used all his strength to immerse himself in a fight with Haichuan to win the girl he loved. The whole audience seemed to explode with emotion and unique performance from all three of them. After the successful performance, the class raised their glasses to celebrate the victory at the art festival. Amidst the happy atmosphere, Keishin turned to ask Fan Tuan who she would choose between the two boys who had just fought for her. Hearing this, Zihei immediately interrupted and confidently said that if he were to go on stage, he would definitely overshadow both Haichuan and Muguang. To prove it, he was even excited to show off some street dance moves for everyone to admire. During the meal, Muguang could not hide his sadness as he kept witnessing Haichuan's attentive care and attention to Fan Tuan. Muguang's disappointed eyes were accidentally seen by Boss Zhu. Seeing this, he generously ordered 5 more plates of meat to treat them. When Boss Zhu started to approach and ask about Fan Tuan, Muguang immediately became alert. Muguang quickly pulled him aside to talk privately. Boss Zhu once again offered to invite Muguang to work, but he still refused. Realizing that Muguang clearly had feelings for Fan Tuan, Boss Zhu immediately gave him some advice. Boss Zhu said that Muguang had to have money to protect her. Boss Zhu also shared that he only made money for 2 purposes. One was to help his teammates, the other was to let his family live in a bigger house. On the way home that day, Muguang saw his father dating another woman. Although Mr. Chen tried to explain, Muguang only coldly replied that I had no right to manage your personal affairs. In a sulky mood, Muguang drank until late at night before returning home. Hearing his father's nagging, he angrily expressed his suspicion that they were not biological father and son. In fact, Muguang was Fan Tuan's biological brother. Only when Muguang sobered up did Mr. Chen seriously ask for clarification. After hearing the story, he burst out laughing and said that he did not have the free time to raise someone else's child. He began to tell that he and Muguang's mother had known each other since high school. After graduating, she worked at the same company as Fan Tuan's father. During a company picnic, Fan Tuan's father invited Mr. Chen to go with him, and it was also during that day that Mr. Chen had the opportunity to close the distance and gradually move towards marriage with his wife. He concluded that Fan Tuan's father was the one who helped him have a good son, like Muguang. Mr. Chen also admitted that recently he intended to find a woman to take care of the two of them. But now he thought again. He wanted to live with Mu Guang. That was enough. Even though Mr. Chen had explained, Mu Guang still did not completely believe him. Decided to act on his own. He secretly drew blood to verify his blood relationship with Fan Tuan. He sneaked into her room, but at that moment, she suddenly woke up and was startled to see him lying on top of her. Caught red-handed, Mu Guang quickly made an excuse that he came to ask for some snacks. He was afraid that she had hidden delicious food on the bed, so he searched carefully. At that moment, Fan Tuan was pricked by a rose thorn and bled. Seizing this opportunity, Mu Guang excitedly took that blood sample and put it in a bottle. However, the plan failed because the hospital informed that they only tested blood from veins. Not giving up, Mu Guang returned home and asked Fan Tuan's family blood type. She innocently said that both her father and son had blood type O. Mu Guang immediately went to see the biology teacher. He asked a hypothetical question. If the father had blood type O and the mother had blood type A, could they give birth to a child with blood type AB? The teacher immediately answered that, in that case, the child would only have two possibilities, either blood type O or blood type A. After hearing this, Mu Guang was overjoyed because he had blood type AB. That meant he was definitely not Fan Tuan's brother. He happily returned to class. The more he looked at her, the more he felt that she did not resemble him. But Fan Tuan did not understand, and she still insisted that they were siblings with the same father but different grandfathers. Meanwhile, at the billiard shop, Boss Ju heard that his grandmother was coming to visit, so he quickly called an emergency meeting to think of a way to deal with it. As a result of the meeting, Mu Guang was forced to change clothes and temporarily promote himself to pretend to be the owner of the shop. Ironically, at that time, Zihei brought Fan Tuan to play. When she saw Mu Guang's fake heroic appearance, she burst out laughing. Realizing that Boss Ju was signaling Zihei to understand, she quickly reminded Fan Tuan. Mu Guang, as the owner, had no choice but to act. He asked permission to leave first, to give them space to discuss their studies. To make the play more complete, Zihei also told his grandmother that Ju was working hard on solving the problems because he wanted to retake the university entrance exam. Hearing this, his grandmother was very happy and trusted him, and gave them some duck eggs. After she left, Mu Guang witnessed an unexpected scene. Boss Ju, whom Mu Guang originally thought was just a rough gangster, was extremely affectionate and filial to his grandmother. Only then did he open up and confide that she was his only remaining relative. He admitted that even though he was a thug, he felt extremely warm just by eating her duck egg. Boss Ju also explained that the reason he had to risk his life to earn money was so that his grandmother would not have to worry about material deprivation. These sincere confessions made Mu Guang realize that he had misjudged Boss Ju, so he quickly apologized. Moved by Mu Guang, Boss Ju decided that after he retired from the game, he would hand over his entire career to Mu Guang. Boss Ju thought that although Ahui was loyal, he had too much of an ego, so he could easily go astray. Ironically, Ahui accidentally overheard the entire conversation and plan outside. Meanwhile, Fan Tuan also seemed to be having psychological changes. In her dream, she suddenly saw Mu Guang become her Prince Charming. When she woke up, she looked at the bottle of balm he left on the table and felt a little confused. But that mood was quickly broken. The next day at school, she heard a shocking news that Teacher Wang was punishing Mu Guang for daring to write a love letter to a female friend. This news immediately made her angry. After class, Fan Tuan pulled Mu Guang to the rooftop. She asked whether he wrote the letter to his senior or to his desk mate, Wan Wan. Being pressed for time, Mu Guang did not answer, but he sarcastically said that she and Hai Chuan were the ones in love. This diversion made Fan Tuan a little embarrassed, but she quickly avoided his gaze and continued to question. Being pressed, Mu Guang had to confess that he had indeed written a love letter. Hearing this, Fan Tuan immediately left in anger. Ironically, when Mu Guang returned to class, was reluctantly hailed as a hero by his classmates because he had bravely pursued love. Coincidentally, in the following literature class, Miss Yuan seemed to grasp the psychology of the whole class, so she brought up a rather sensitive topic. She admitted that although student feelings were not promoted in school, she believed that this kind of passionate emotion did not need to be strictly forbidden to discuss. She asked the whole class how they explained love. Zihei was the first to speak. He said that people always have emotions. No matter what age, feelings are always a beautiful memory. Keishin related a movie she had seen and said that love is about constant possession. Hearing this, Miss Yuan smiled and immediately added the next sentence from the movie. She explained that it is also about unconditional sacrifice for the person you love. As an experienced person, the teacher concluded that a good love will help us grow up. Therefore, she advised the students that if expressing their feelings can affect their studies, it is best to temporarily hide it in their hearts. Be patient and wait until after both of them graduate. There will be more opportunities opportunities then, and as soon as class ended, the truth about the love letter was revealed. Bu Li hurriedly pulled Mu Guang out and thanked him profusely for delivering the love letter. Mu Guang was kind enough not to tell Bu Li to the homeroom teacher. In a hidden corner nearby, Fan Tuan had secretly heard the whole conversation. She immediately felt relieved when she learned that Mu Guang had not written love letters to any other girl. After school, Hai Chuan took the initiative to invite Fan Tuan to his house to lend her the novel Gu Lum. But coincidentally, Kei Xin had just brought him a gift. Seeing that scene, Fan Tuan had no choice but to ask permission to leave first. Chuan hurriedly ran out to see her off. Time passed. After Mu Guang got over his misunderstanding, he often came to class early and secretly filled Fan Tuan's candy box. The secret competition with Hai Chuan also began to become obvious. In the winter, when Teacher Wang reminded the whole class to focus on studying for the upcoming exam, a war broke out. When faced with a difficult problem, Mu Guang openly competed with Hai Chuan for the first time to answer it. It turned out that he wanted to prove his ability to Fan Tuan. Although Mu Guang was not called upon by the teacher to answer, he still secretly solved the problem on scratch paper. As a result, his speed even surpassed Hai Chuan. During recess, Hai Chuan happened to see Mu Guang's scratch paper. He was surprised to admit that there was another, even shorter way to solve it. Finally, the important exam arrived. While Hai Chuan and Mu Guang were competing fiercely, Fan Tuan remained faithful to her old rule of choosing the shortest one if there were 3 long sentences and 1 short sentence. Z even left it to fate and trusted in a dice. In the speed race, this time, Mu Guang had excellently finished the test before Hai Chuan, but the test result was not as expected. That day, when Fan Tuan returned home, Mrs. He announced an important news. She had quit her job at the shop. She explained that she had heard that the overseas garment industry was very fond of Chinese patterns, so she wanted to go there to try her hand. However, she was also very worried, afraid that her daughter would object. Contrary to Mrs. He's worries, Fan Tuan was extremely proud. Fan Tuan encouraged Mrs. He and said that even though she was old, she still dared to start a business. She also promised and assured that she would take good care of herself. The next day in class, the atmosphere was heavy. Teacher Wang announced the test results. He did not forget to scold that this was the teacher's worst class. In the midst of his anger, the teacher suddenly praised Fan Tuan, even though she was only ranked 10th from the bottom, but at least her literature score was very good. In complete contrast, Mu Guang, who was a math genius, had a plummeting score. He even ranked lower than Fan Tuan. The truth was quickly revealed. It turned out that he had done it on purpose. Mu Guang was afraid that Fan Tuan would be ranked last again, so he deliberately erased some of the answers in his test. When Fan Tuan found out, she hurriedly ran to the teacher's office and asked the homeroom teacher not to call Mu Guang's parents. The girl stood up to defend him. She explained that his situation was very special. Mu Guang's father had to work hard to raise him. She also promised to actively encourage him to study so that he would definitely get better results next semester. Although Fan Tuan successfully rescued Mu Guang from trouble at school, it seemed that bad luck had not yet left them. When they returned home, neither Fan Tuan nor Mu Guang escaped the familiar punishment of being made to stand. However, even while being bored by the punishment, Fan Tuan could not sit still. She made a new bet. She confidently challenged that she would pass 5 levels in the upcoming exam. The contract was also very clear. Whoever lost would have to do something embarrassing. The loser had to imitate a dog and jump 10 times on the ground. The days of studying continued. At the cafeteria, Fan Tuan was surprised to discover that her friend Lin Shu also disliked herbs, just like her. Coincidence continued when they realized that they both met by chance. They both loved durian and both idolized the movie Innocence. Witnessing the two girls quickly becoming close, Zihei could only sigh. He thought that the friendship between girls was truly magical. To change the atmosphere, he announced some exciting news. He heard that there was an abandoned cement factory nearby. He invited the group to go there to explore. On the weekend, the group decided to go to the abandoned factory to explore. As soon as they stepped through the door, Mu Guang heard a noise. At that moment, a person suddenly appeared, scaring Fan Tuan. She quickly hid in Hai Chuan's chest. It turned out that this was a play set up by Zihei and Mu Guang. Zihei had given Mu Guang props to help him act out the heroic act of saving Lin Shu. It was just a pity that plan was a bit off. After Fan Tuan calmed down, she turned to scold Mu Guang. She said that he was old and still used fake snakes to scare people. The group continued to explore. Zihei played a trick again, waiting for the cowards, including Fan Tuan and Hai Chuan, to enter a room, then tightly closing the door. He just wanted to tease him a little. Unexpectedly, the old lock was stuck and couldn't be opened. Seeing this, Mu Guang tried to turn the handle hard. Unexpectedly, he accidentally broke the lock in half. The situation became serious, so Z had to rush to find a locksmith. While being locked up, they were only separated by a door. The awkward atmosphere made Mu Guang suddenly suddenly recall his childhood memories. He remembered that Fan Tuan had also hidden in the closet, but she couldn't unlock it herself. It wasn't until he found someone to open it that she cried like a kitten. Hearing him mention it, she also remembered, but in her memory, everything was different. The moment the closet door opened, the one crying miserably was Mu Guang. Outside, Z hadn't had time to find a locksmith yet when a senior named Jin Sheng arrived with professional locksmithing tools. It turned out that while everyone was panicking, Lin Shu had quickly texted him for help. This made Z unhappy because he had secretly liked Lin Shu for a long time. When the door was finally opened, the atmosphere inside became even more awkward. Both Mu Guang and Hai Chuan realized and clearly saw the other's special concern for Fan Tuan. On the way back, when there were only 2 people left, Mu Guang turned to blame Fan Tuan, asking why she didn't run towards him when she was scared, but instead ran towards Hai Chuan. Only then did Fan Tuan look bewildered, explaining that she didn't know either. Perhaps it was just an instinctive reaction to turn back. The next morning, trouble struck. Hai Chuan's father suddenly came to school to ask to transfer him to a different class. Too surprised, Hai Chuan hurriedly went to stop him and promised his father that he would definitely return to the top of the class in the next test. Teacher Wang also thought that just one test couldn't tell the whole story of Hai Chuan's abilities. In the end, the teacher suggested a solution, which was to temporarily move Hai Chuan to the front desk so that he could focus more on the lecture. So Hai Chuan had to leave his position next to Fan Tuan. He focused on studying and finally successfully completed the final exam with the highest score in the whole class. Keeping his promise, he was transferred back to his old position. Before winter break, he gave Fan Tuan a small gift and wished her a happy holiday. In return, she also returned the notebook he lent him. When Hai Chuan said goodbye to Fan Tuan, she accidentally dropped a movie ticket. Hai Chuan picked it up. When he saw the ticket, he thought she was trying to sneak out on a date with him. So, Hai Chuan prepared very carefully to go to the movie date. However, when he arrived at the theater, the person sitting in the ticket next to him was Mu Guang. It turned out that Mu Guang was the one who bought the ticket. He secretly put the movie ticket in the notebook on Fan Tuan's desk to invite her, but he didn't expect that it was Hai Chuan's notebook. As a result, the 2 boys reluctantly sat together and watched the movie in an awkward situation. At home, Fan Tuan couldn't open Hai Chuan's gift box, so she called Mu Guang to ask for help. When Mu Guang came over, Fan Tuan wasn't in the room. Curious, he opened Hai Chuan's gift for her. He saw a complex mathematical formula inside. Mu Guang immediately understood the romantic meaning behind the formula, so he quietly left the gift and left. When Fan Tuan returned to her room, she naively thought that Hai Chuan was reminding her to study hard. Through the window, Mu Guang saw Fan Tuan happily looking at the gift, but he mistakenly thought that she understood Hai Chuan's intentions. Winter break came, and Fan Tuan returned to her habit of sleeping in. She often slept until noon. Because Mu Guang was so bored, he tried every way to wake Fan Tuan up. In the end, he was helpless, so he had to use the ultimate trick of food to move her. Seeing her being lazy and not even bothering to leave the blanket to eat, he could only sigh. He compared her to a piglet who only knew how to eat and sleep all day. On New Year's Eve, Fan Tuan and Mu Guang hung lanterns. At that time, Hai Chuan also arrived. Mu Guang immediately pulled Hai Chuan in to replace him. That night, Hai Chuan ate dumplings and watched the New Year's Eve show with the families of the 2 friends. They watched the brilliant fireworks together to welcome the sacred moment. On the occasion of the New Year, Mr. Chen gave Mu Guang a new shirt. Meanwhile, on the other side of the wall, Mr. Shi also gave his daughter a phone that she had secretly wished for a long time. After celebrating the New Year with her family, the group gathered together to go to the roller skating rink. As soon as he saw Hai Chuan about to guide Fan Tuan, Mu Guang immediately interrupted and quickly grabbed his friend's hand. The group just followed each other to have fun on the skating rink, but in a private moment, Mu Guang took the initiative to hold Fan Tuan's hand. But happy times always pass very quickly. The familiar alarm clock rang again to welcome the students to the new semester. As soon as she stepped out of the door, Fan Tuan saw Mu Guang wearing a new denim jacket, a gift from his father. She immediately reminded him that Teacher Wang would definitely take off the jacket if he saw it. Mu Guang smiled and replied that he had expected it, so he only planned to wear it around the schoolyard to show off. The 2 hurried to class. He was in such a hurry that he forgot to cut the label off his jacket. In class, the atmosphere was still the same. The students were racing to copy the homework they had done during winter break. Mu Guang walked in with coolest face he could muster, but he was immediately exposed by his classmates because the label on his jacket was still uncut. Hearing the bell ring, he quickly put the jacket in his desk drawer. Teacher Wang walked in and solemnly announced that there were only 500 days left until the most important exam of a student's life. Therefore, to tighten discipline, he announced that he would confiscate the phones of the entire class before each class. Hearing Hearing this, Mu Guang, who was already experienced, quickly used tape to tape his phone under the table. He even secretly gave Fan Tuan a piece of tape, signaling her to imitate him. However, tragedy struck. Just as the teacher finished recording, Fan Tuan's phone suddenly rang loudly. Teacher Wang immediately discovered her deceitful behavior. Too angry, he threw her phone out the window. He sternly demanded that she compensate him when she met the parents in the office. When it was time for recess, Fan Tuan hurriedly ran to find the thrown phone. Luckily, Hai Chuan picked it up for her, but the poor phone seemed to be unusable. Seeing her sad, he promised to take her to the repair shop after school. From afar, Mu Guang could only silently watch Fan Tuan being protected by another boy. Unable to publicly congratulate her, Mu Guang decided to sneak into the broadcasting room. He turned on the microphone to wish a happy birthday to his special friend. He played the birthday song and asked everyone around Fan Tuan to wish her a happy new year together. When Mr. Wang heard the students happily wishing her a happy birthday through the loudspeaker, he couldn't bear to interrupt their joy. Meanwhile, in the broadcasting room, Mu Guang ignored the teacher screaming and banging on the door to get in, but he still closed his eyes and drifted to the music. He thought that youth was short, so he wanted to go crazy once so that he wouldn't have any regrets later. Mu Guang silently wished Fan Tuan a happy birthday. When Mu Guang returned to class, he was greeted by cheers from his classmates. Zihei even ran over and praised that the eyes of the 10th graders who had just given Mu Guang were full of admiration. Hearing Mu Guang boasting a bit too much, Fan Tuan only wondered how long his self-criticism would be. He confidently replied that 5,000 words was nothing. In return, he witnessed the impotent anger of the head of the school's discipline committee. During the evening history class, the lights in the classroom suddenly went out. The teacher had just dismissed the class early when ironically the lights came back on. But the mischievous students did not miss the opportunity, so they quickly packed their bags and left. On the way back, Hai Chuan chased after Fan Tuan. He asked if she accepted the meaning of the mathematical formula in the gift box. Fan Tuan did not understand the formula, but she agreed to let it go. At that moment, Hai Chuan timidly took her hand and officially wished her a happy birthday. When she got home, Fan Tuan received another surprise. Mu Guang and her family had prepared a birthday cake. She happily made a wish and blew out the candles while everyone congratulated her. Then, Mu Guang pulled her into her room and gave her a small gift. He explained that when she was little, he had lost her precious marble. Now, after so many years, he had fulfilled his promise and given her an even brighter and more beautiful marble. The next day, Teacher Wang continued to punish the whole class because of their declining test scores. While listening, Fan Tuan suddenly felt dizzy and fainted and fell to the ground. When she woke up in the hospital, she was scared and thought she was near death. She cried, told her parents, and even told Mu Guang to study hard in the future. Seeing that she seemed to stop talking, Mu Guang panicked and quickly called for help. After the doctor examined her, he reassured her and said that she only had a common viral fever. It had nothing to do with chronic hepatitis. However, Mu Guang was still extremely worried and refused to leave her side. At this time, Fan Tuan's parents finally knew the true nature of her illness. They realized that she had tried to hide her illness because she was worried about her mother who had just lost her job. Mr. Shi was moved and affirmed that although the family's current situation was not good, even if he had to work day and night, he would definitely treat his daughter. After school, Hai Chuan brought her homework to the hospital and planned to tutor Fan Tuan. But as soon as she heard the words study, she felt dizzy. At that moment, the power went out in the hospital room. Hai Chuan had to teach under romantic candlelight. Ironically, this lack of light made her even more sleepy. Outside the door, Mu Guang once again quietly watched Fan Tuan happily studying with Hai Chuan. He didn't go in, but waited until late at night before daring to call and ask how she was doing. He had gathered all his courage to ask if she could stop looking at Hai Chuan from now on. However, she had already fallen asleep, so she couldn't hear Mu Guang's sincere request. When she returned to school, Keishin was assigned to be on duty with Fan Tuan. Taking advantage of the opportunity, she began to mock Fan Tuan. Keishin said that Hai Chuan was a simple person and hoped that Fan Tuan wouldn't use the sick trick to try to keep him. She said that Hai Chuan had always been very obedient, but it was because of Fan Tuan's influence that Hai Chuan had become more and more distant from his family. Hearing those words, Fan Tuan was not afraid and replied that she didn't know what the rich's education was like, but her parents always taught her to never take control of someone else's life. Sin angrily went to Boss Ju. She paid 10,000 yuan to hire him to scare Fan Tuan, but Boss Ju refused and advised her that she was still young and should not think of such bad things. However, as soon as Keishin left, Ahui chased after her and expressed her desire to take the job. Keishin immediately made a deal and said that she only needed Ahui to scare Fan Tuan, not to do it for real. That evening, on the way to Lin Shu's house to study with Fan Tuan, she was suddenly blocked by a group of of thugs. At the same time, at Lin Shu's house, because she had not seen Fan Tuan for a long time, she called Mu Guang. As soon as he heard the news, he immediately felt uneasy, because he knew that Fan Tuan had left half an hour ago. Meanwhile, Fan Tuan had been taken by the thugs to their hideout. There, she was surprised to realize that Hui, the leader, was also the one who worked at Mu Guang's billiard shop. On the way to frantically search for Fan Tuan, Mu Guang suddenly received a phone call from her own number, but on the other end of the line was a stranger who informed her that the owner of the phone had fainted. At the same time, in the hideout, Hui began to threaten Fan Tuan, telling her not to cause more trouble for Keishin. He said that he had completed the mission, and now it was time for him to take revenge on Mu Guang. As soon as he heard the name Mu Guang, Fan Tuan immediately warned him not to touch her friend. But it was too late. Mu Guang, after following the instructions of the phone call, arrived at an abandoned apartment complex. That was also the building opposite where Fan Tuan was being threatened. When Mu Guang was about to save her, he was ambushed from behind. The thugs dragged him in front of Fan Tuan and started to beat him. Seeing Mu Guang in danger, she struggled to run to save him, but she was immediately knocked down by Hui. Witnessing that scene, Mu Guang, despite being seriously injured, still struggled to crawl over and use his body to protect her. He tried to reassure her that she should not be afraid. He would protect her. When Mu Guang was taken to the hospital, Fan Tuan still kept crying. She refused to go back and change her clothes, but just sat there waiting for him to wake up. She felt very guilty and told herself that Mu Guang was really stupid. She did not know if he was in pain from bleeding so much. The fact that he slept for so long really scared her. However, no matter how much she waited, after a long night, he was still in a coma. Seeing this, Mr. Chen had no choice but to advise Fan Tuan to go back and rest a bit, because Mr. Chen believed that if Mu Guang woke up, he definitely would not want to see Fan Tuan in such a sick state. Not long after, Keishin also came to visit Mu Guang. There, she tremblingly confessed everything. It was she who hired Hui to threaten Fan Tuan, but she could not have expected that he would act on his own and take revenge on Mu Guang. Keishin begged Fan Tuan to give her a chance to make amends, but Fan Tuan, in a fit of anger, brushed it off. Fan Tuan asked Keishu who would give Mu Guang a chance when he was in so much pain, unconscious on the hospital bed. Fan Tuan only gave Keishin one chance, which was to confess to the police. Meanwhile, Keishin's mother also went to see Fan Tuan's family and brought a large sum of money. She hoped to buy their silence so that Keishin would not have to go to the police. However, Mrs. He flatly refused. She reminded that Mu Guang's life could not be bought with money. The only thing they needed was for their children to be safe and not suffer. Unable to convince the parents, Hai Chuan went to the hospital to see Fan Tuan again. Hai Chuan said that Keishin's mental state was very unstable and he was afraid that she would do something foolish. Hai Chuan begged Fan Tuan to forgive Keishin for his sake. This defense only made Fan Tuan more indignant. Fan Tuan wondered if Keishin's apology could make up for the fact that she was kidnapped and Mu Guang was in a coma. Fan Tuan felt extremely disappointed when even Hai Chuan came here to plead for Keishin. Fortunately, after 2 days and 2 nights in a coma, Mu Guang finally woke up. Fan Tuan's parents saw this and rushed home to cook porridge for him. Mr. Chen ran to call the doctor. Only Fan Tuan was left. She couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She cried and said that she was afraid that she would have no one to argue with anymore. She choked up and confided to him that she didn't want to always be protected by him. She hoped that she could take the beatings with him in the future. When he woke up, he still didn't forget to tease his friend. He immediately criticized Fan Tuan's crying appearance. He said that he wanted to see her smile more. Fan Tuan also told Mu Guang that she had decided not to report Keishin, even though she was afraid that he would blame her for this decision. However, Mu Guang only gently said that he was willing to listen to all her arrangements. Although she was not reported, Keishin's guilty conscience finally made her decide to confess and take responsibility for her mistakes. She thought that doing so would make her feel better. Meanwhile, Boss Ju also went to see Hui. He still did not understand why Hui was so cruel to Mu Guang. At this time, Hui directly said the reason why he was angry was because he had spent so many years working hard with his boss, but he was not appreciated as much as a new kid who had just started working part-time at the billiard shop. Hui declared that he wanted to compete for power with Boss Ju. During the struggle, Hui picked up a wine bottle and smashed it on his boss's head. After the fight, on the way to the hospital, Boss Ju asked the police to let him say a few words to Mu Guang. He said he had taught Hui a lesson. Hui had also been arrested for kidnapping and causing injury. Boss Ju also asked Mu Guang to occasionally call his grandmother while he was in detention for fighting. At this time, Keishin had taken the initiative to confess and was not criminally punished. However, she still felt extremely guilty and decided to transfer schools. Finally, Mu Guang was discharged from the hospital. While packing his luggage, he accidentally saw his father's belt that was so worn out that it was torn. On the way back, Fan Tuan suddenly pulled Mu Guang into an automatic photo booth. The reason was because apart from their class photo, the two had never had a single photo taken together. Mu Guang happily agreed and posed for all the cutest photos with Fan Tuan. When Fan Tuan returned home in the evening, looking at the photos, she remembered the moment at the photo booth. She suggested taking a serious photo, and in that photo, Mu Guang sat down with his arm around Fan Tuan's shoulder. They kept a beautiful memory. The next day, the whole class warmly welcomed Mu Guang back. He was still excitedly telling the story of his heroic act of saving his friend when he suddenly discovered that the whole class was isolating Hai Chuan. Zihe quickly pulled him aside to explain and said that everyone now considered Hai Chuan as Keishin's accomplice because he had apologized for Keishin. Hearing that, Mu Guang just thought that everyone was being a bit petty by isolating someone who had done nothing wrong. Coincidentally, Hai Chuan passed by and accidentally heard the whole conversation. But fortunately, before class, Bu Li took the initiative to give Hai Chuan a can of drink, breaking the tense atmosphere. When Hai Chuan had just returned to his seat, Lin Shu also asked him to explain. Seeing this, Fan Tuan also turned to ask him for a sip of water. At this time, Mu Guang revealed a secret that Hai Chuan's drinking water had always been provided by him. Fan Tuan smiled and used that action to confirm that both she and Mu Guang had forgotten everything that had happened. They were all still close friends. Afterwards, Hai Chuan met Fan Tuan privately and asked her if she understood the meaning of the mathematical formula in the gift box last time. Fan Tuan had to confess that she had accidentally lost the paper and was afraid to say it out of fear of making Hai Chuan sad. Hearing that, Chuan could only sigh. He realized that he had misunderstood her feelings all along. At that moment, Fan Tuan hurriedly ran to find Mu Guang. Looking at her back, Hai Chuan had to accept it, secretly admitting that Mu Guang had won against him. When returning to class, Fan Tuan saw Mu Guang chatting happily with the class monitor named Wan Wan. Still noisy, she ran to put her arm around Mu Guang's neck, causing him to tease her. He advised her to learn to be less gentle than the class president. This joke unintentionally made Fan Tuan a little sad. She insisted that she had to be true to herself. After school, Fan Tuan remembered that she had to walk because her bike was lost during the kidnapping. Coincidentally, Mu Guang also said that he did not ride a bike. He said that from now on, he would walk with her, but the truth was that he secretly left his bike at school just to walk home with her. At the weekend, the group of friends decided to organize a picnic. They climbed to a high place together and looked out at the entire scenery of the county. It was also here that they began to share about their future dreams. He cherished the idea of pursuing a career in real with the goal of building a magnificent villa on the mountainside. As for Fan Tuan, her dream was a bit more realistic. She just wanted to lie down and count money. Bu Li and Hai Chuan were more serious. Both of them aimed to enter a university in a big city. Mu Guang, on the other hand, planned to open a newspaper stand, living a very carefree life, going to work when he wanted, resting when he was tired, and taking Fan Tuan out to play when he was bored. Among those soaring dreams, only Wan Wan had a simple wish, which was to be a normal person. After going down the mountain, the group happily camped. They fought over a spot to lie down and sunbathe. To liven up the atmosphere, Hai Chuan suggested that the group play truth or dare. When the first turn fell to Lin Shu, Ziyi hurriedly asked his friends to give him a chance. He did not hesitate to ask Lin Shu directly if she liked him. Lin Shu also tactfully replied that she liked Ziyi, but also liked everyone. When it was Ziyi's turn, he also asked himself the same question and answered himself. He bravely declared that he really liked Lin Shu and wanted to take the entrance exam to the same university. The atmosphere became climaxed when it was Mu Guang's turn. Instead of answering, he suddenly hugged Fan Tuan tightly and said that he wanted to be with her for the rest of his life. To cool down, when it was Hai Chuan's turn, he just accepted the challenge. He happily performed a dance for his friends. After grilling the sausages, Mu Guang brought them to Fan Tuan and Lin Shu. At night, he and Fan Tuan sat and watched the starry sky. When it was time to go to bed, Mu Guang lay next to Hai Chuan. Both of them were silent, listening to the conversation of the two girls in the tent next door. They heard Lin Shu curiously wondering if Fan Tuan liked the type of guy like Hai Chuan or the type like Mu Guang. The tension rose, but when Fan Tuan replied that she liked the type like the star Jin Chengyu, both of the boys in this tent simultaneously breathed a sigh of relief. That night, when Fan Tuan went out to the bathroom, she found Wan Wan sitting alone watching the moon. After Fan Tuan finished, Wan Wan suddenly thanked her friends for giving her such a meaningful time. Although Fan Tuan felt a bit strange, she happily promised promised to take the class president to more interesting places. But then at midnight, Fan Tuan was startled because she still hadn't seen Wan Wan return to the tent. Feeling a little uneasy, she quickly went to the next tent to look, and here, she didn't find Wan Wan, but only a suicide note. In the letter, Wan Wan wrote that when everyone read this letter, she might have freed herself. She confessed that she had been suffering from depression for a long time. Just like that, she sank deeper into a dark cave. She hoped that her friends wouldn't feel guilty because the warmth that everyone brought was more than enough for her. She said that in her last days, she always remembered the happy moments with them. She felt that now she could finally sleep well. She wished to be like a cloud in the sky, just carried away by the wind, ending 16 years quickly. Fortunately, Mu Guang found Wan Wan in time and stopped her. After Wan Wan calmed down, Fan Tuan could only apologize. She blamed herself for not discovering it sooner. Only then did Wan Wan honestly share that there seemed to be another personality inside her that was always urging her to disappear from the world. She fantasized that doing so would make her father come home more often. She also confessed that she really admired Fan Tuan and Mu Guang because they could easily feel happy. Hearing this, Mu Guang also opened up. He confided in her own pain. He said that he did not have a mother. She had left when he was very young. He remembered that every time he finished school, every time he was sick, he desperately hoped that his mother would appear even once. He used his own story to comfort Wan Wan. He affirmed that she did not owe her father, nor did she owe anyone, that the world owed her too much. Fan Tuan also continued to advise Wan Wan not to miss out on the good things that were still waiting for her in the future. Returning home from the picnic, Mu Guang saw his father waking up, looking tired. Perhaps after what had just happened, Mu Guang had matured. He took the initiative to cook a bowl of noodles for his father. Then, he asked his father to take off his old belt to wear the gift he had bought for him. Witnessing this action, Mr. Chen was extremely happy. He realized that his son had finally learned to care for his father. When he returned to class, Mr. Wang announced that Wan Wan would be taking a leave of absence. The position of class monitor would be temporarily taken over by another student. At the same time, in order to improve their academic performance, the teacher decided to divide the class into many small groups. Fan Tuan was extremely happy to see that she was in the same group as Hai Chuan. Meanwhile, Mu Guang was in the same group as Bu Li. However, while reviewing, Fan Tuan accidentally threw a book at Bu Li. Seeing her remorse, he made a condition to be grouped with Hai Chuan. Fan Tuan reluctantly agreed, and so they formed a group of 5 to improve together. Seeing that the study group seemed fun, Zihe quickly asked to join. One day, in front of the school gate, Boss Ju was waiting for Mu Guang's group to finish school. He announced the good news that his detention had just ended. He also said that he had decided to transfer the billiard shop because he was preparing to go to Shenzhen. Boss Ju explained that he wanted to take his grandmother there so that she could see a wider world. On the way back, Fan Tuan seemed to be inspired by the stories around her and suddenly thought that she had decided what she wanted to do in the future. She dreamed of opening a bookstore. It would not only be a place to sell books, but also a place where readers could find understanding and direction. She thought about how Wan Wan needed to know that there were many other people struggling with depression, or how Boss Zhu had finally found the right path forward. In the cool night wind, Mu Guang quietly watched Fan Tuan's passionate appearance as she talked about her dream, and perhaps, starting from this very moment, he also began to plant a seed of his own future, a future with Shi Fan Tuan. He decided that he wanted to become an architect so that one day he could design her dream bookstore with his own hands. Time passed, the second semester also ended. Teacher Wang happily praised the whole class for knowing how to strive and achieve second place in the whole grade. Among them, Hai Chuan had excellently returned and ranked first. Thinking that everything was going well, during recess, Zihe passed by the teacher's office and accidentally heard some bad news. Teacher Wang was about to transfer schools. He hurriedly ran back to class to inform everyone. Although Teacher Wang was a bit strict, the whole class had to admit that he was very considerate of his students. This news made everyone feel disappointed. In the last class of the 11th grade, Teacher Wang seriously reminded the students not to let themselves go, because next school year, everyone will have to face the biggest test of their life. The teacher confided and said that 12 years of sharpening a sword is only to go to battle for 3 short days. And then, he suddenly announced that he was about to change jobs. He instructed that no matter how the new teachers were, they must always always study hard. He affirmed that he had done his best for them. He hoped that before they became successful people, they all had to learn how to be good people first. Hearing that the teacher was about to leave, Zihe quickly spoke up to ask the teacher not to go. He expressed that both he and his friends could not bear to leave the teacher. Standing in front of the group of students who were rowdy but full of affection, Teacher Wang could not hold back his tears. When he returned to the office, he quietly looked at the photo that the students sent, especially the line acknowledging that the teacher had worked hard. It made him extremely emotional. After some hesitation, Mr. Wang decided to return to class, announcing that he would stay and take responsibility for his students until the end. Although this meant missing out on a promotion opportunity, he still felt extremely relieved. Summer vacation began. While Fan Tuan was lazily enjoying his time lying down and soaking his feet with his father, Hai Chuan, on the other side, was still buried in his homework. Looking at the towering pile of documents from the extra class, he felt suffocated and wanted to end the long-standing restraint. When he returned to his room, Hai Chuan began to paste photos all over the wall. As a practical act to prove the mistakes in his father's education, he told himself that, instead of living to satisfy his father's expectations, he wanted to strive for his own future. Hai Chuan did not like the things his father arranged, but every time he dared to speak his mind, he was scolded. Hai Chuan was determined to try hard for the university entrance exam, but not for his father, but for his own future. On Mu Guan's birthday, the group of friends made an appointment to go back to their hometown to play. Hearing Zihe advertise that there was a beautiful sunflower garden, Fan Tuan eagerly arrived early. However, the reality was cruel. The place was just a field full of weeds. Seeing Fan Tuan looking down and disappointed, Mu Guan immediately took her to a nearby flower garden. Together they set foot on strange land and enjoyed the peaceful moments of the last summer vacation of their student life. At noon, it suddenly started to rain. Mu Guan quickly took Fan Tuan to take shelter. He did not forget to lament and said that the weather in July was as unpredictable as her temperament. Seeing that their friends had not arrived yet, they both had to put down the food they had prepared to fill their stomachs. It turned out that Zihe had overslept. Hai Chuan was busy reading. Lin Shu could not come due to the heavy rain. Fan Tuan felt a little regretful about a birthday party that was supposed to be very bustling, but in the end, only she and Mu Guang remained. Realizing that this was probably the last summer of his student life, Fan Tuan suddenly asked Mu Guang if he liked any girl in school. Being asked unexpectedly, he immediately asked back, making her shy and not dare to say anything. Because she had to wake up early in the morning, Fan Tuan started to feel a little sleepy. Seeing this, Mu Guang suddenly hugged Fan Tuan. He used his broad shoulder as a soft pillow for her, but when he saw her lips so close, he had to restrain himself. When the rain stopped, they were lucky to get a farmer's car to go home. On the way, hearing Fan Tuan confess that she had forgotten to prepare a birthday present, Mu Guang immediately turned away in anger. She quickly asked him to look at her. Then she suddenly gave him the necklace she had prepared. On the pendant was a photo of the two of them together, along with two metaphorical verses. Although he thought the necklace looked cheap, his hands were very quick and he quickly put it around his neck. At the same time, another incident occurred. Mr. Chen felt unwell, so he went to see a doctor. Here, the doctor diagnosed him with chronic kidney failure, and it was in the final stage. The vacation was almost over. Fan Tuan returned, doing summer homework with Mu Guang. The two listened to music, pretending to study, but secretly glancing at each other's faces. Mu Guang even deliberately pulled his chair closer and lightly touched Fan Tuan's hand. But at that moment, a customer who came in to buy a soft drink suddenly broke this romantic moment. The new school year had just begun. As soon as he returned, Mu Guang excitedly announced that he had now become the school's biggest senior. From now on, he could freely call the shots without looking at anyone's face. When entering the classroom, Teacher Wang also started the final year of school, mentally preparing all the students to face the continuous mock exams. He also announced a good news. Wan was officially back. She would fight with the whole team in this important school year. To start, Hai Chuan represented the whole class to recite the oath. The oath was that on this important day of turning 18, everyone would study hard and absolutely not be arrogant. They would strive to be good people, to repay their parents, and be righteous people. They would use their actions to bring glory. Together, they would shoulder the responsibilities of adulthood. Afterwards, Teacher Wang also announced that his students had now officially entered adulthood. He advised that, when entering this age, each person would have to use their own youth to face the difficulties in life. He hoped that the students would not lose their youthful enthusiasm because of maturity. Finally, he gave each of them a special gift. It was a letter written by their parents. The words of parents are the best gift of adulthood. In the letter, Hai Chuan's father said that I was sorry for always treating you like a child. I always forced you to follow my own way of thinking. He explained that because his life was full of ups and downs. He always wanted his son to be well prepared, to avoid being passive and not being able to handle things. But he also admitted that in the end, he did not understand his own son. He wrote that he was wrong. He was wrong because he did not believe in his son's maturity. And from today, I promise to let you take control of your own life, and I will forever be the fortress standing behind you on the rooftop. Mugwang could only laugh. When reading his father's scribbles, he told that now that you had grown up, you should stop causing trouble and bullying Fan Tuan. The father hoped that he would become a real man, the pillar of the family. In the letter, the father confided that he was old and could no longer protect his son. As a single father, he had encountered many difficulties, but he affirmed that Mugwang was always the rope that pulled him back from difficult shores. At the end of the letter, he wrote that being Mugwang's godfather was the greatest happiness in his life. The father's letter to Fan Tuan was also filled with emotion. He wrote that he did not wish for her to become excellent. He only wished for her to be safe all her life. He also blamed himself for not giving her a healthy body. Both of them firmly affirmed that no matter what the price, they were determined to cure her. They were willing to send her abroad if they could not cure her in the country. At the end of the letter, he said that he believed that she would definitely be completely healthy one day. Her parents loved her very much. Standing in the summer breeze, perhaps the young man could also feel that feeling. Mugwang secretly promised himself that he would definitely cure Mugwang. At the same time, another shocking secret was accidentally revealed. One time, when Mr. Shi called his wife who was abroad, he thought his daughter was busy listening to English, so he accidentally told her Mugwang's family's private story. Unexpectedly, at that moment, Fan Tuan was about to go out to pour some water, and she heard everything. She heard her father say that Mr. Chen had contacted Mugwang's biological mother. On the other side of the wall, Mr. Chen seemed to be preparing for a separation. He was planning to transfer the grocery store. He sat down and had a serious talk with his son. Finally, he confessed the truth that he was not Mugwang's biological father. He said that Mugwang's biological mother was currently in Guangzhou. She had absolutely no idea that her son was still alive. The reason was that she had accidentally gotten pregnant with Mugwang because her family was afraid that this would affect their future marriage. As soon as she gave birth, they lied that the child was no longer alive. Then her family secretly took Mugwang to an orphanage, and the person who took Mugwang from the orphanage to Mr. Chen to raise was none other than Fan Tuan's father. Mugwang was stunned, and he tried to accept the truth. He painfully asked his father if he was the abandoned child. Unable to accept this shock, he immediately ran out of the house. Seeing this, Fan Tuan hurriedly ran after him. She worriedly asked, but in that moment of confusion, she accidentally admitted that she knew that he was not Mr. Chen's biological child. This confession added fuel to the fire. Mugwang felt even more betrayed. He angrily ran away to find some private space. Mugwang wandered aimlessly through the streets until he stopped on a bridge. Among the crowd, he realized that although this city was so big, it seemed that there was not a single house that truly belonged to him. Finally, Mugwang agreed to go home, but he locked himself in his room and refused to talk to anyone. Unable to stand by and watch, Fan Tuan went to the door. She asked why he could treat Mr. Chen like that. She shouted and reminded him of how hard Mr. Chen had worked to raise him all these years. That love is not inferior to any biological father in the world. Because Mugwang refused to meet, Mr. Chen had to stand outside and confide through the door. Mr. Chen recounted that the first time he saw Mugwang, he did not dare to hold him for fear of hurting Mugwang. But miraculously, Mugwang did not cry, but smiled. Mr. Chen said that at that moment, his heart melted. He was very happy because from then on, his life had a little angel. Mugwang was like a beam of light given by God. His name was also born from that. In his old age, Mr. Chen seemed to have found a way out of life. He confided that no matter what difficulties he encountered, as long as he thought of his son, he would have the strength to overcome them. Hearing those words, Mugwang finally opened the door and helped him into the room. Mr. Chen apologized again for not telling the truth sooner. He recalled that when Mugwang was 5 years old, when Mugwang needed to draw a picture of his mother, Mr. Chen planned to take him to see his biological mother. But in the end, Mr. Chen didn't dare because he was too afraid that Mugwang would be hurt if he knew. Looking at Mr. Chen's guilty expression, Mugwang seemed to have accepted the truth. He just gently asked if his biological mother knew about his existence. Mr. Chen nodded and said that he had called and told her everything. She had made an appointment to meet Mugwang the following week. Everything with his father had been resolved, but the problem with Fan Tuan was still there. The next day when he met her in class, he deliberately ignored her. Although Fan Tuan stubbornly said that she didn't want to apologize anymore, her feet unconsciously went to find Mugwang. She even tried to make peace and personally fed him sweet soup, but he still coldly walked away. On the rooftop, Haichuan came to talk. Haichuan remembered that in the past, it was Mugwang who was afraid that he would be isolated, so Mu Guang took the initiative to bring his friends to talk to Hai Chuan. But now, Mu Guang was doing the same thing, isolating Fan Tuan. Although Hai Chuan didn't know exactly what happened between the two, he still advised that avoiding things wouldn't solve the problem. Only then did Mu Guang confide in them. He said that he thought he wouldn't have any secrets from Fan Tuan. However, he just discovered that she was like everyone else. She had hidden something very important from him. However, Hai Chuan still defended Fan Tuan. He was sure that she must have her own reasons for doing so. Mu Guang's anger lasted until school was over. It was raining, and Lin Shu saw that Fan Tuan didn't have an umbrella. Lin Shu immediately asked Mu Guang to take her home. However, he still coldly left. Seeing the opportunity, Zihe immediately gave his only umbrella to Fan Tuan to find an excuse to go home with Lin Shu. But when Fan Tuan just went downstairs, she saw Mu Guang waiting for her. As soon as he saw her, he immediately looked at the umbrella in her hand. Then he blamed her and sarcastically said that she was used to lying. It implied that she had kept his secret. The misunderstandings piled up so much that she couldn't stand it anymore. She was so upset that she burst into tears. When she returned to the snack shop, Fan Tuan still didn't dare sit at the same table as Mu Guang. Seeing the strange atmosphere, Uncle Hyun immediately announced the sad news that he was about to close the shop to take care of his daughter's grandchildren. Seeing Fan Tuan and Mu Guang arguing, Uncle Hyun, like an adult, gave advice. He believed that growing up together as a friendship was a very precious thing, because when you grow up, you won't be able to find such pure feelings again. This advice seemed to have an effect on Fan Tuan. She took a breath and sat down with Mu Guang. She stubbornly insisted that no matter how angry he was, she would never let go. Her stubbornness seemed to have worked. On the way to school the next day, Mu Guang deliberately took her bike to walk with Fan Tuan. However, he still acted. When he arrived at the school gate, he suddenly drove away, leaving Fan Tuan alone. When school was over, she had to go look for him again. She discovered Mu Guang was playing at the old billiard shop. When he saw her, he still pretended not to see her. However, in the end, he still couldn't bear to leave her alone. He came back to find her, and luckily she was still there waiting for him. Finally, the two made up. When he saw Mu Guang having lunch, Fan Tuan officially apologized for hiding such an important thing from him. Mu Guang also admitted that he knew his background had nothing to do with her, but because he always considered her the closest person, when he found out that she was also hiding it from him, he became angry. All the problems were resolved. Under the afternoon sun, Fan Tuan asked Mu Guang what he wanted to do after graduation. He secretly revealed that he would do something that he had wanted to do for a long time, but he didn't dare. Fan Tuan was curious, and she thought he should have said it sooner, because waiting was tiring. But Mu Guang just smiled and replied that good things were always worth waiting for. When he got home, Mu Guang was being treated to a feast by his father with only 2 stir-fried vegetables, when luckily Fan Tuan and her father brought meat to eat together. While in Mu Guang's room, Fan Tuan accidentally saw the pair of women's shoes that Mu Guang had hidden. Being discovered made him embarrassed. He refused to admit that he had bought them for her. However, Fan Tuan was still curious and tried them on, and they fit her feet. Although she complained that they were ugly, when he asked her to put them in the box, she was stubborn. She immediately accepted the shoes as hers. Finally, the day to meet his mother arrived. Mu Guang was worried, and he turned to his father and asked if he should go. Mr. Chen reassured Mu Guang and said that she had come all the way from Guangzhou, so at least she should see her son. Mr. Chen also did not forget to tell Mu Guang to try to cheer up, otherwise, people would look at him and blame him for not knowing how to raise a child. Although his father had encouraged him, when they were near the meeting place, Mu Guang was still very shy. He felt that he did not have enough courage. Seeing this, Fan Tuan, who was with him, continuously encouraged and urged Mu Guang to quickly meet the person who gave birth to him. During their first meeting, the atmosphere was quite awkward. Mrs. Xiao confessed that she did not know what her son liked, so she bought some clothes based on her feelings. She timidly asked Mu Guang if her image was similar to what he imagined. Mu Guang only replied that because he had never met his mother, he could not have a specific picture. Hearing this, Mrs. Xiao was moved. She recounted that when she heard that her son had died due to a difficult birth, she was so heartbroken that she just wanted to follow him. She said that even in her dreams, she did not expect her son to still be alive in this world. She blamed herself a lot for missing out on both his childhood and adulthood. She kept apologizing for not holding her son tightly that day. After hearing Mu Guang tell Chen's father about his difficult situation, Mrs. Xiao immediately offered to take him back to Guangzhou. She hoped that doing so would reduce Mr. Chen's financial pressure, in case he could comfortably remarry and start a new life. At this time, after Mr. Chen heard that Mu Guang had met the mother, he also began to make his own calculations. He knew that his illness had become serious, and he had to undergo regular dialysis. The treatment costs were extremely expensive, and it was was only a temporary solution. Even if he was lucky enough to receive a suitable kidney, the surgery would still cost a huge amount. He did not want to waste that money on himself, but he wanted to save it for Muguang's future. Muguang also had money to go to university, get married, and have children. Although Mr. Chen admitted that he could not bear to leave his son, he also knew that he did not have much longer to live, so he had to make arrangements for Muguang. So when Muguang returned, Mr. Chen took the initiative to advise him to spend more time with his mother. Mr. Chen even suggested that when Muguang finished his college entrance exam, he could move to Guangzhou. When Muguang innocently asked if he was not bored being alone, Mr. Chen just tried to act tough. He said that he wanted to be free. If he felt lonely, he would find an old friend to keep him company. Muguang did not know about his father's illness, but he understood that his father was creating conditions for him, so he decided not to wait until he finished his college entrance exam and immediately moved away. Although Mr. Chen was heartbroken, he did not dare to keep Muguang. Early the next morning, Mr. Chen called Muguang to have breakfast, but the room was empty. Muguang had already left. He was so heartbroken that he confided in Fan Tuan. He said that he did so because he did not want to affect Muguang's future. Fan Tuan was also worried, and she thought that with Muguang's straightforward personality, if he offended his mother's family, it would be very difficult. Hearing that, Mr. Chen immediately and proudly affirmed that Muguang was raised by him every day. If anyone dared to bully Muguang, he would risk his life to seek justice. But at that moment, Muguang suddenly returned. He walked in and asked his father, "Why you deliberately pushed me away?" He made it clear that the only reason he decided to leave this house was because he was afraid that he would become a burden to his father, and now that his father said no, he would never leave his father again. After making peace, Fan Tuan saw Muguang sleeping by the window again. She went to wake him up and conveniently checked his decayed teeth. Because she saw that the candy box he hid was full, she intended to confiscate the candy box, but he told her that she could only open it when he gave her permission. But just then the hospital called to inform her that Mr. Chen was in the hospital. The two of them rushed over. Seeing Muguang's worry, Mr. Chen tried to lie, saying that he only had kidney stones and general malnutrition. Muguang believed him and immediately blamed his father for being stingy and not daring to buy meat. Mr. Chen also promised to buy more meat. Then he asked Muguang to go home to get his bank card to pay the hospital bill. However, Fan Tuan felt something was wrong. She deliberately stayed. When he saw that she was about to go ask the doctor, Mr. Chen knew he could no longer hide it. He had to admit the truth that he was suffering from end-stage renal failure. He begged Fan Tuan to keep it a secret. He explained that he did not want this to affect Muguang's mental state for the exam. That was why he had to hide his illness. Meanwhile, in class, Mr. Wang announced that the results of the first mock exam were out. This time, he was very surprised by Muguang's math performance. He had risen from last place to first place in the whole grade. After proving his ability, Muguang confidently sent a message to Fan Tuan to accept her position as a private tutor. Later, during a private conversation, Fan Tuan suddenly wondered and asked Muguang if her illness worsened. Would it affect him much? Muguang did not hesitate to affirm that if that happened, he would be even sadder than if he himself had the illness. He also promised that this time he would not childishly leave like last time, but would use his own shoulders to shoulder everything with her. This promise made Fan Tuan even more worried. At the hospital, she talked to Mr. Chen. She expressed her concerns about hiding Muguang. Mr. Chen still held his opinion. He explained that the college entrance exam was too important. Muguang's future could not be ruined because of him. But Fan Tuan did not agree. She questioned her father and Muguang's father about why they did not have faith in their children. She analyzed that if Mr. Chen just left without Muguang knowing, the pain would stay with him for the rest of his life. She was worried that with Muguang's kind nature, he would definitely blame himself and live in torment and regret forever. When he entered the hospital, Muguang only asked one question: "When would you be able to go home?" Mr. Chen sadly said that he probably couldn't leave this place yet. He decided to give his son the test results. He admitted the truth that he had uremia, or kidney failure. Now, his condition had become so severe that it could no longer be cured. Hearing this, Muguang quickly said that this disease could still be treated with a kidney transplant, and he wanted to give his father one of his kidneys. But Mr. Chen shook his head and analyzed that their blood types were different, so they were incompatible. He only hoped that his son would have enough courage to face this cruel reality. When he returned home, when he met Fan Tuan, Muguang dared to let himself fall. He shed tears. He remembered what his father had said, that I only wished to see you go to college, get married, and have children. Fear came over him, and now he didn't even dare to enter the house. He was afraid that if he left, his father would never come back. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Mr. Chen was also quietly preparing. He wrote many letters to his son. He hoped that even if he left in the future, Mu Guang would not feel lonely. He hoped that Mu Guang's future would have some trace of him. Time waited for no one. 30 days before the college entrance exam, all the students were trying their best. Teacher Wang also sternly reminded some students whose results had regressed in the second mock exam. In the hospital, when tasting the food Mu Guang cooked, Mr. Chen smiled and praised his increasingly improving skills. Mr. Chen was moved when he thought of Mu Guang becoming a college student. Although he was very happy, he also sadly admitted that he probably couldn't wait until then. At this time, Mu Guang was also trying to paint a bright future. He imagined his student life would be full of color. Every day he would hear his roommates complaining about love affairs. He would choose a major he loved, then find a part-time job. And after graduation, his biggest plan was to propose to Fan Tuan. Then, he and she would have chubby children. Mr. Chen also seemed to feel secure if Mu Guang was with Fan Tuan, because he had already seen Mu Guang's intentions. However, Mr. Chen also gently advised Mu Guang that love and marriage were two very different things. Although Mu Guang did not fully understand the profound meaning of his father's words at that time, he was sure of one thing: Fan Tuan was the person he deserved to be with for the rest of his life. Seeing Mu Guang think so maturely, Mr. Chen felt very happy because he had truly matured. In the last class, Mr. Wang also could not bear to leave his students. He suggested that the whole class take a commemorative photo to mark the most beautiful period in everyone's student life. The fateful college entrance exam finally arrived. Every student cherished every moment of taking the test. Only Mu Guang spent the first day of the exam in anxiety and worry because he knew his father's condition was not good. Tragedy struck. Right in front of the last exam room, Mu Guang received the bad news. He no longer cared about the exam. He ignored everything and ran frantically to his father. At this moment, all the simple moments he had with his father suddenly became so precious. In the last moment of his life, which seemed like a fantasy, Mr. Chen saw his son holding his college admission paper in his hand. He smiled and tried to say his last words to Mu Guang, that I loved you. But when Mu Guang got there, his father had already passed away. Mu Guang dragged his steps heavily. He could only stand there, looking at his father's haggard face for the last time. The house was warm, but today, only Mu Guang was left. In the dark, he hugged the shirt his father had just bought him. When he went out to the kitchen to find something to eat, he suddenly saw the jar of pickled vegetables that his father had told him to finish before the 11th. He suddenly remembered that every time he pickled vegetables, his father made a lot, even though his father knew that he did not like this dish. But now, this was the last jar of pickled vegetables that his father Gu had eaten. Mu Guang tasted it, and only then did he realize its true taste. He ate it while smiling through his tears. When Mu Guang calmed down, Mr. Shi came to give him Mr. Chen's belongings. It contained an insurance book and some savings. Mr. Shi said that Mr. Chen's greatest wish was to see Mu Guang become a university student. Mr. Shi also announced his plan to send both Mu Guang and Fan Tuan to live abroad. At the same time, Mu Guang's biological mother also contacted him, expressing her desire to bring him back to Guangzhou. After many twists and turns, Mr. Shi decided to let Mu Guang choose for himself. When they returned home, Mr. Shi and Mrs. He also discussed with Fan Tuan about going abroad. Mrs. He analyzed that Fan Tuan's predicted score was probably only enough to get into a normal university. She was afraid that Fan Tuan would have difficulty finding a job in the future. She believed that if he went abroad, Fan Tuan would have more opportunities. But Fan Tuan immediately disagreed. Fan Tuan immediately ran to find Mu Guang. She affirmed that she did not want to go abroad and would definitely not leave him. Hearing this, her father had no choice but to say that he planned to take Mu Guang along. Upon hearing this, Fan Tuan immediately changed her mind and agreed. As long as she did not have to part with him, she agreed. She also excitedly planned to take him to explore many new places when she went there. Seeing Fan Tuan happily imagining the future, Mu Guang's eyes suddenly filled with sadness. He went to confide in Zihei. Here, Mu Guang revealed his true decision. He would not go abroad, nor would he go to Guangzhou. He wanted to stay in this very land, where all the memories of his father were kept. Meanwhile, at home, when she saw Fan Tuan excitedly packing up, Mrs. He could not bear to hide it from Fan Tuan anymore. She had to tell the truth that Mu Guang had decided to stay. Fan Tuan did not understand the story clearly, so she immediately misunderstood. She thought that her parents did not want to help Mu Guang, so they deliberately left him alone. Immediately, Fan Tuan ran to see Mu Guang and asked why he suddenly changed his mind and refused to go abroad with her. Mu Guang tried to explain that after his father left, he felt he had grown up. Now he had to take on his own responsibilities. He gently asked her not to be angry, but to cherish the remaining time together happily. To make up for this change, he asked her to go to the movies. Fan Tuan was very excited to go to the theater early. However, she did not expect that he would not come alone, but also asked Wan Wan to go with him. Feeling cheated, she was angry and returned the movie ticket to him on the spot. When she she got home, Fan Tuan continued to ask Muguan why he asked Wan Wan. In response, he deliberately acted cold. He started praising Wan Wan for being gentle and that she would definitely get into a good school. At the climax, he revealed that the important thing he wanted to do after graduating was to be with Wan Wan. Fan Tuan was stunned and she could not believe her ears. She affirmed that no matter what he said, she had decided not to go abroad anymore. Seeing her stubbornness, he immediately said that he only saw her as a close friend. Right now, he wanted to build a new life and make new friends. Although heartbroken, Fan Tuan still tried to say that she promised not to stop him from making new friends. Muguan thought he had no choice but to use the most cruel blow. He said that his family had exhausted all their money to treat his father's illness, and he did not want to bear any more burdens. He coldly asked her that if her illness could not be cured, she should not involve him anymore. Seeing Fan Tuan's sadness, Mr. Shi understood that she could not bear to leave Muguan. He said that he admired the love between the two children. However, he also advised her that love must be tested to be truly lasting. Moreover, if Fan Tuan wanted to become an author, she had to travel and experience many places. He believed that after exploring the world, if she and Muguan still had their hearts set on each other, they would definitely meet again. The group of friends raised their glasses and held a farewell party to say goodbye to Fan Tuan before she went to a new land. Everyone sent their best wishes to her. Every moment of separation was filled with tears of regret. One day later, Fan Tuan carried Muguan's pearl and officially said goodbye to the place filled with memories. When the car passed his house, she looked at the familiar window, but the girl didn't see him looking at her. She banged on the car door, screaming, calling Muguan's name. She said that she really had to go, and she said goodbye to him, but she didn't know that Muguan was still there. He was just hiding in a corner, quietly watching, silently saying goodbye to Fan Tuan. Afterwards, he went to drink with Muguan to drown his sorrows. He tried to introduce many beautiful seniors to Muguan, but just mentioning Fan Tuan's name once was enough to make Muguan unable to hold back her tears. Only then did he tell the truth. He confided in Zihe, saying that Fan Tuan was very stupid. He couldn't even tell the direction. If she went abroad alone and didn't know the way, what would she do? He painfully admitted that no matter how good the other girls were, they weren't her, and the reason he cruelly pushed her away was because he was too scared. He was afraid that if she stayed by his side, she wouldn't be cured and would suddenly leave like his father. He didn't want and couldn't bear that loss again. Meanwhile, on this side, Fan Tuan went to the New York airport alone. When she went to the restroom while looking for paper in her bag, she suddenly discovered a letter from Muguan. In the letter, he explained everything. Muguan apologized for not being able to meet her to say goodbye. He admitted that he didn't want to face separation, and even more so, didn't want to see the tears of pain rolling down her face. He told her that if she encountered difficulties in the future, she should always remember that he would support her. He also told her childishly that if she had a boyfriend, she should remember to look carefully at him. And he also told her that if she got married to someone, she should absolutely not send him an invitation, because he would never go to such a faraway place. At the end of the letter, he only wished her eternal peace and happiness, a bright future, and that all her wishes would come true. 12 years later, Muguan had truly become an architect, just like the dream he had cherished for Fan Tuan. He learned that Fan Tuan had married someone else, so he had proactively stopped contacting her 2 years ago. However, over the years, he had always carried her necklace with him. On the familiar road, Fan Tuan had now grown up. She returned to the old house, which had once held so many memories. She and Muguan had gone through beautiful years together. The image of the mischievous, but always silently caring friend from that day was still intact. She silently thought of saying goodbye to Muguan. Fan Tuan told herself that if she had the chance to meet him again, she would definitely want to tell Muguan that if there was ever a time when he suddenly missed her, please remember that she would always remember him. And even if one day his hair turned white, his memory was no longer good, and he walked slowly, to her he would still be the same young man he was. Early in the morning, Muguan returned to his old house. At this time, Fan Tuan had just left. He was currently working in another city, so he only occasionally returned to burn incense for his father. When he entered his old room, he opened the candy box that Fan Tuan had left behind. He was surprised to discover a secret. Underneath each candy was a message from her. It was a wish for him to be safe forever. It was a hope that he would take her to see the northern lights. It was a warning for him to eat less candy so he wouldn't get cavities. And finally, it was a secret confession that she hoped he liked her as much as she liked him. After reading all those messages, Muguan couldn't hold back her tears. Right after that, on the way out of Huayuan County, Muguan suddenly received a phone call from Zihe. Zihe told him the shocking news that Fan Tuan had actually divorced a year ago. She had also just returned to Huayuan and probably hadn't left yet. Hearing the news, Muguan immediately ran to find her, but at that moment, Fan Tuan accidentally walked into a bookstore. She was stunned when she realized that this bookstore was exactly like what she had imagined in the past. There were glass doors all the way to the ground, a coffee shop on the second floor, and sunflowers on the tables. She suddenly remembered that it was because of this dream that Guan had promised to become an architect to personally make it come true for her. While rushing to find Fan Tuan, Guan was filled with regret. He kept wishing that he had opened the door that day. If only he had the courage to go abroad to find her. If only he had dared to confess his true thoughts. However, he did none of those things. It was that cowardice that made him miss Fan Tuan. He could only wonder in vain how she had lived all these years. Unable to find Fan Tuan, Guan mustered up the courage to text and ask to meet. That night, in his dream, he was back to his student days, when she was still by his side. In the dream, Guan bravely took the opportunity to pull Fan Tuan up to the rooftop. He told her that he wanted her to remember this moment, in case they had their own lives in the future and could no longer be together. And then he confessed his heart to her that he liked her. He had always liked her very much, and he loved her. The two arranged to meet in front of the bookstore. Finally, after 12 years, Guan met Fan Tuan again. His eyes accidentally stopped at the ring on her hand. When he heard her praise the bookstore behind, he was only sad and said that it was indeed his work, but he still had many regrets. The meeting was short. Fan Tuan did not want to disturb his current life, so she quickly asked permission to leave first. In her heart, she felt inferior, thinking that since she had been married, she was no longer worthy of the man who had given her the bright pearl years ago. Standing on this side, Guan also looked at her back, blaming himself for his shyness that made him miss the girl he loved once. He told himself if God gave him another chance, he would definitely hold her tightly by his side. Thinking and doing, he called out to her. When Fan Tuan turned back, he suggested playing an old game. Then he took her hand and wrote on it a line of confession that he would wait for her forever. Finally, Fan Tuan understood Guan's belated confession. She smiled. Without hesitation, Guan stepped forward and hugged Fan Tuan tightly. He promised himself that he would never let her be apart again. And finally, after so many misses, they had a happy ending. Their story is like a reminder that whether they are relatives, lovers, or friends, if one day they are forced apart, believe that in the long flow of time, we will definitely meet again.